Landlords and tenants both wonder the same question. Can a tenant change the door locks without the landlord's permission? Is it against the law, against their lease agreement? You may think that it's logical that a tenant should ask the landlord for permission to change the locks, however, many don't. They'd instead do what they want and face the consequences later. It's like the old saying, shoot first, ask questions later. Welcome back, Loopers. My name is Sydney and I'm a content creator here at DoorLoop. Today I'm going to help you by diving into the issue of tenants changing their locks, starting with why a tenant would want to change their locks. As a landlord or property manager, you may wonder why a tenant wants to change their locks in the first place. There are some valid concerns they may have, including but not limited to ensuring no one else has a key to enter their apartment, including landlords, property managers, and previous tenants. As a landlord, make sure you follow a turnover checklist and change the lock's keys or security code after every tenant. A tenant may want to put a smart door lock so they can let in friends, family, or contractors and vendors like housekeepers, dog walkers, exterminators, and more. Or they may be making duplicate keys if their current key or lock doesn't allow for duplicates, like some high security keys. Once you can understand their reasoning, you can find common ground when writing your lease agreements and making the rules. Now keep in mind that if you're too strict, tenants may not want to renew. It's in your best interest to be as empathetic and understanding as possible. There are laws regarding changing locks on the doors, however they're different in every state. Despite many legal disputes in court, there is no clearly defined precedent covering the law's broad spectrum. The unique situation of each case dictates the manner in which the cases get resolved. The good news is I can extract some bits of wisdom and can give some generic advice. Now, please note that I am not an attorney and I am not giving you legal advice, so please contact your attorney to check for your local state laws. So can a tenant change their locks or not? Generally, tenants do not have the right to change their locks. They cannot exclude the landlord from the property without a reasonable cause. If the landlord has changed the lock or key from the previous tenant, the new tenant should not have a motive or purpose for changing the locks. Although the terms of the rental agreement are different between tenants and landlords, there are some common responses to why tenants are not permitted to change the locks. First being that landlords might face difficulty while entering the property to fulfill their obligations related to a rental agreement, a significant number of which are legal obligations. If you're a landlord, you have the responsibility to inspect the property at least once a year. Number two, it prevents landlords from accessing the property in emergencies. A water pipe could burst or a roof could leak, which are just a few of the various maintenance problems that might occur on the property. Most likely, the tenants would be at the property to let the landlord know of such issue, but what if they're not? A landlord might need to be present at the property to allow the repairman in, only to find out that the property locks have been changed, resulting in a waste of everyone's time and significant damage that could have been avoided. And another reason is tenants are not allowed to make changes to the property without permission, including changing the locks. Although the exact law varies from state to state, the landlord is required to change the locks with costs covered by the tenant if tenants change the locks without informing the landlord. When you tell the tenant your side of the story and your reasons as a landlord, they will hopefully understand. Some unusual and rare situations also occur, making the tenant feel the need to change the rented property's locks. Landlords cannot disturb tenants without their permission. Although landlords are legally allowed to have reasonable access to the property, it doesn't allow them to show up at the property every other day, breaching the tenant's privacy. So when can a tenant change the door locks? Such situations might allow the tenant to change the locks on the rented property. The landlord has been unresponsive and unsupportive on an issue faced by the tenants. A tenant might have a genuine complaint about the existing locks not working correctly, or even after raising the problem with the landlord has not taken action. Or if the tenant does change the locks without permission, the tenant should keep the original lock fittings. Changing the locks should be done by a qualified locksmith. Any damage caused to the door or the door frames is a cost that landlord will claim from the tenant. A tenant should not attempt to change the locks themselves. Although the task may seem quite simple, it may cause damage to the door, and in some cases the property becomes less secure than it was before the new lock change. Instead of constantly changing your locks every time a tenant moves out, you can look into two options. Rekeying. Some door locks allow you to easily rekey the door lock to a new set of keys so you don't have to replace the entire lock each time. Smart locks. Get a digital smart lock that allows you to quickly change the code. You can get some that offer both a digital keypad and an actual physical key if the battery dies. Now, all of these reasons are exactly why you should make it clear in your lease agreement. Many standard rental agreements forbid tenants from changing the locks. Suppose there's no specific term mentioning the locks or specifically about changing the locks. In that case, there's usually a term about prohibiting making changes to the property, which may be interpreted for locks too. If the tenancy agreement forbids explicitly changing the locks or making changes to the property, the owner is entitled to change the locks again and charge the tenant for the expenses incurred during the process. These costs are deducted from the security deposit of the tenant. Since lock and keys are of serious importance happens in a rental situation for both the tenant and the landlord, the most sensible way is to write the terms regarding changing locks in the rental agreement. A landlord can make it evident in the lease if they have allowed the tenant to change locks, to which the tenant can either agree or disagree, hence leaving no room for this issue to come up in a rental situation in the future. As a landlord, also make sure to always include all the relevant lease clauses in your lease agreement. Whatever the case may be, locks and keys are a crucial part of keeping a rental unit safe. Both the tenant and the landlord should be proactive in discussing the terms of the rental agreement to avoid any problems and hassles. I hope this video helped you out, and if it did, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more property management content. You can also check out this playlist for more tips, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!